The voice. I love my mother and I miss her tremendously, but I never mythologized her the way my siblings do. I guess it's one of the problems they have with me. I love our family, my sister likes to say, or you're the only one who still has a problem with this. From my brother referring to the violence, chaos, and dysfunction that was our childhood. My brothers often talk about hiding from my father the times he beat the shit out of them while laughing over a beer. But when I try to join in and say something, I'm quite literally told that nobody wants to hear from me about it, that it's different. Hmm. I have no doubt that it's their own violence towards me that is the factor here, as not one of them has ever acknowledged the daily harassment and violence I experienced at their hands. Some years back, a brother said to me, one time when I was throwing rocks at you in front of McGurk's, the corner bar that is the backdrop of many childhood scenes, so and so, our childhood friend, who was my brother's age, they were 5 years older than me, so and so came around the corner and said, X, what the fuck are you doing? That was the whole story. No apology, no reflection, just casually mentioning a scene where I was just having to take whatever harassment was on the menu for the day. My mother never did anything to intervene in these activities unless they were directly pushing her over the edge. So long as they took place out of her eye line and earshot, they were fair game. Her two lines I remember most are, is it happening right this second? And get out of here before I knife you in the back. Then there was my father. No matter how annoyed she might be that he had missed dinner again and came home tired, which was our cute little way of saying he was bombed, never too tired to take you on if you pissed him off, though, so it was best to stay quiet and stay clear. None of it really mattered because she was deeply in love with him, and him with her. They were true sweethearts. On many nights, he would call me into the kitchen after he lumbered to the couch to kiss my mother. She would turn her head as if she was mad, and she was mad, but glad he was home, and you could see she was charmed by him even in that state. So on these nights, he would call me in, always me. I never knew why he had such a problem with me. I was the youngest. Call me in and have me make him liverwurst and cheddar cheese on Ritz crackers with Gulden's brown mustard. I would already be almost crying because I was so afraid of him. I would bring him his plate, him sitting in his chair at the head of the table watching a small TV set. This would be in the years between 1971 and 75 or something like that. I wasn't allowed to just leave then. I had to stand there. Even then, I knew he enjoyed my terror. He would really milk it, ignore me for a while. Me just standing there trying not to cry because that's what he was waiting for, it always seemed. He would eventually ask me something, like what I did that day, something benign. No matter what the question, the answer was always inadequate and evidence of my not having too much going on for me. That's it, he would say, or something equally dismissive in his drunken slur. I always eventually cried. Always. Not one time do I remember leaving that kitchen not crying. I would then get dismissed. Oh, here come the dramatic tears. You're like Sarah Bernhardt. Well, a fucking 8-year-old knows who fucking Sarah Bernhardt is. I would walk through the living room, through the jeers of my siblings, poking at me or throwing something as I walked by. You gonna go cry in front of the mirror? And that's exactly where I was going. I would silently walk through the living room, up the stairs, left through the middle room, and into the back room. The back room was mine and my sister's. I would sit in front of the mirror in the back room and watch myself cry. Years later, a therapist would commend me for giving myself a witness, as no one else in my family would ever validate my pain. I would watch myself cry until my mother would calm me down to watch TV. I wasn't allowed to endure my humiliation alone. I had to be with them. Not one of them was sympathetic. I can still feel what it was like to sit on the couch near my mother. I honestly don't remember one hug in my childhood. In the room with, say, 4 or 5 siblings, so tense and confused, and with a sense of dread till it was time for bed. And here's the worst part, the haunting betrayal, the true evidence of my unimportance. My mother would say to me, Go and kiss your father goodnight. It was honestly like being stabbed every time she did this. So no, I did not mythologize my mother. I love her and I miss her and I enjoyed her, but she was never a real ally of mine. He died on July 5th, 1991. Almost immediately after his death, my mother talked about wanting to die herself. I lived with her for the 3 months following the funeral. Those 3 months are hazy. I can remember writing thank you notes and my mother being in bed. She eventually got up, of course, and the phrase, "I'm ready to go anytime God is ready to take me," became commonplace in the 24 years between their deaths. Sometimes I would hear her say it, not even really talking to me, as if it were a soundtrack in her mind that would occasionally slip into the room. She wanted to be with him, simple as that. These family dynamics continued into adulthood, and I could never find my true interpretation of the situation. There were so many of them, and they seemed to be getting along just fine, and I always seemed to be struggling. One sister said, "I don't want you to think I'm judging your life. It's not like you're mooching off Mom." I had already been in 2 different art pieces that showed, one at the Whitney and one at MoMA. Not my own work, but still I was proud. And my sister viewed me as a lowlife because she didn't bother to know anything about me. I just kept feeling it was me who was in the wrong. After all, another sister said, "It's a shame for everyone the way you are." Or from yet another sister, "Why do you think our siblings didn't want you hanging out with their kids?" For this, she was referring to a common fear that I would try and villainize my siblings to their children, which I never did. In fact, when the kids would ask me about their parents, I would say, "You'll have to talk to them. It's not my place to say." These types of cruel comments are common, and for years I internalized them, tried to be better. Better than what, I am finally asking myself. I've told therapists and close friends, of course, who all ask me the same question. Do you think maybe you should stop seeing them? But I crave closeness with them. The secret pandemic family Zoom meeting finally did it. My dysfunction in regards to them interrupted. A long-sought clarity coming into focus, and with that a profound regret that it has taken me this long. But I am happy that I can see. I truly am. I live in New York and am from Philadelphia. I went home a weekend a month for years. I would tell my mother I'm coming such and such a weekend. If X, the stone thrower, wants to come that weekend, let me know and I'll change my plans. Many of those weekends, X would show up knowing I was there. So strange that though he claimed he wanted nothing to do with me, he was always around. There was an absolute disregard for my wishes. My comfort was of no consequence to either of them. One year, X had written me a letter which stated, "You have never done anything good for anyone in your life." On one of these weekends, I heard his car pull up in the driveway while I was sleeping. My mother had allowed him to stage a conversation for the 3 of us. I said I was leaving. She had a panic attack. I had never seen her so out of herself. Fake crying was a regular tool in her arsenal, so melodrama from her was very familiar. But this was different. This was actual. She was ranting and at one point said, "Maybe I should have just sent you to the special school. Maybe I should have when they said I should." When I asked her about it later, as I was extremely interested, she said, "I don't know what you're talking about, hon. I don't remember anything like that." My mother had no problem lying straight to your face, even when you both knew it. It was a gift, I guess. Anyway, X had created a story wherein I was the cause of 2 friends of his who were, to be clear, people he met through me, my friends, that I was the cause of them ending their friendships with him. This was a pure fantasy. I, of course, had nothing to do with these friendships ending. I never campaigned against him, as he told some of my siblings and my mother, and I have no doubt he came to believe this. Anything to avoid his responsibility in any of it. How it was my fault that he moved into my house when I was at work and against my wishes when I was 21 and he was 26. Why, it's my fault he slept with a friend of mine, even though his girlfriend was one of my closest friends, and in fact, they had met through me. It's, of course, my fault that he was gaslighting her, telling her it was her own fucked up relationship with her father that kept her from trusting men, and that it was her own insecurity and drug addiction that made her feel like he would cheat on her. As she recounted these words to me, she weighed about 100 pounds. A beautiful girl reduced to the brink of a nervous breakdown by a person making her responsible for his own infidelity and malice. And my friend who he slept with was far from the only one. So when she begged me to tell her the truth, I did, of course. It was the right thing to do, and I would do it again. She vomited for hours. He, my mother, and other siblings told me I should have minded my own business. He moved into my house, slept with my friend, cheating on his girlfriend who he had met through me. But yeah, none of this is my business, because I don't really exist to them. Not really. I'm a tool, a ragdoll they can project their dysfunction onto. Just like the two friends who stopped wanting to hang out with him. My friends. I don't know why. They never talked to me about it, and I never asked them. I do know what he said to me was, we're not going to call you every time we go out. We have our own friendship now. Okay, I said. I don't know why he developed this fantasy that it was my doing. No conversation about him ever took place between me and them, except on the night I got the letter saying that I had never done anything good for anybody and that my whole family had a problem with me. I was having dinner with one of them, and I was clearly upset and told my friend about the letter. He listened, and I could see, of course, he sympathized and was surprised. He felt bad for my brother when he said more to himself than to me, "X, what are you doing?" But his eyes started glazing over. It's too much dysfunction, too much pain, too wrought with generations of laughing about violence. Laughing is okay, but don't you dare fucking talk about it. Not unless you're drunk and can have plausible deniability. Just find someone to kick it on to, however deserving or undeserving they may be. Forget about love, it's survival. It's why I've always felt marked, as if my past were a miniseries about the humiliation of not being cared about that one consumed with a glance at my face. I haven't been able to untangle from the dysfunction. Not really ever. Until now, maybe. If only not for the voice.